Thank you for Kate and Rebecca. Great presentation. I wish we had more time. As Russell Urban Mead said at one of our own meetings, that watershed groups, and that includes the Hudson River Watershed Alliance, are sort of like sleeping giants. We may be small, but we need to be ready to act. And I think that's what Kate and Rebecca were saying. And I want to say that one of these groups that's been most active has been most active is the Sparkill Creek Watershed Alliance. So our next speaker is really on the forefront of doing this every day as a volunteer. She's actually a hero of mine. And Laurie Seeman is also an artist, an outdoor nature educator, and a water advocate. In addition to the Sparkill Creek Watershed Alliance, she's co-leader of the Rockland Water Coalition and a member of the Rockland Task Force on Water Resource Management. Laurie, I put her last on the agenda, but she is by far not the least, and I want to give her the full 15 minutes. I told her that her job was to inspire us because I knew she could do it. So I'm going to lock the doors so nobody can leave so that she gets her full time. So thank you, Laurie.
Hello, everybody. Oh, this thing here is forwarded. Okay. So it's very exciting to be here with my people, you know? As an outdoor educator and artist, we have a method of working outdoors with children, and we often start with the question of where are we? And I want to bring that up in context to where we are today, because on this land and FDR, his great vision for how to meet really difficult circumstances with bold vision moved the nation, and he moved the people. And I'm going to be talking about the people and the need to move the people today. I taught here on this land once as an artist, and I walked the land and collected soil from different locations and water and looked at how the land works here, and I thought about how he may have walked the land and thought of that as they were reforesting this land and dealing with water and soil across America. And I think that the task before us is so vast that the only way we're going to accomplish it is to enlist the people. And I crossed a lot out of my nose to shorten my talk, so I'm sorry, I'm going to bypass my thanks to Maureen and Simon too much, and Harriet and everybody, and all our, Dan and Saul. Thank you. I'm just going to go that far. I have my glasses on. That'll help me too. I began my journey when I first stepped into a Hudson River Watershed Alliance conference. I think it was 7 or 8 years ago. I was seeking to find out who is in the Hudson River Valley taking care of the water, and how are they doing it, and where are they? And it's really through these conferences that I began my journey, and it gave me the confidence to step up and try to make a greater difference in my own life. I want to acknowledge the DEC also for all the trainings you've given the citizens. It's made a huge difference. I grew up with a creek as a best friend, and one day I went to my creek when I was about 8, and they had been bulldozed. That was hard. That was a hard day. I didn't know what to make out of it. I had no reference, and I learned later that they wanted to build a road, and they put in a big culvert. And it's beautiful to look back now and think about that day. I had no idea how important that day would be to me all these years later. I actually walk the creeks and look at culverts and look at outfalls, and that was really a day that moved me forward. And before I head into my talk about people, I think it's very important I just ask everybody here to join me in thinking about how you got here today. I don't mean your vehicles, but I mean how in your life did you come to be a water person? There's gatherings of people for soil and seeds and agriculture and mountaintops, but we're the water people, and we share this language, and our language is talking about utility and appreciation, and we share questions and discoveries. And I'm going to borrow the term from the art world. We are agents of change. I like that idea better than being a volunteer. So as you maybe thought about how did you come here today, I hope some of you thought about the relationships that brought you here and not just your ideas and your goals. Because really it's through our relationships that we make so many of our choices, and it's through relationships that so much happens in our life, but yet our culture really values ideas and goals. And I find even in these conferences, you know I love these conferences, but I find we talk a lot about the ideas and the goals, but we don't talk enough about relationships. And relationships means a lot of things. You know, it means about our families that support us when we're doing this work so that we don't burn out. But it means our relationships to the land, and all kinds of relationships. And my job is to build relationships in our community so that people will want to engage. And so many of the problems we face, as I had said, are from humankind. And the humans just have not been very kind to the places that we are caring about. What happened? I do believe that the way we're going to pull ourselves forward is to reverse through the people, as I've said. My talk's a little choppy because I cut it. And I feel like how we work with the people and how we make them feel is going to make a big difference in how they engage. And I think that by presenting the problems that we're dealing with in a certain way and by being there together, it actually makes the people feel better. And that's a new concept maybe, but these problems can make people feel better by being part of a community that's dealing with them. And I think that that's a really important goal for our community as agents of change. As a citizen, I've learned to work with data, and my community works with data now, and through the Rockland Water Coalition and all these things. And we've learned to bring the data to life. And we bring it to the governing decision makers, we help them interpret it, we line it up, we verify it as the best information from the best sources, and it makes it possible for our governing officials to have more confidence in taking a bold step forward, as such as Harriet Cornell going to bat for water. This is a new role, this expanding role of the citizens, is to work with the data. In a few instances, my people have tried to access data, and we've had a really hard time accessing data, and I think that would be a great topic for future conferences, when it's appropriate to share data with citizens who I think are bringing the data to life in the right places and bringing the data down to the ground. I need to move my slides forward now. This would be an example of work that my partner Joanne and I, Dickie, do. That's an illustration of the Hudson River with sand from two shores of the river there. And that's a relational way of teaching. I was going to show you that a minute ago. The Sparko Creek Watershed Alliance is a 9-mile waterway. It originates on Clauslin Mountain before traveling 9 miles through Rockland County, New York. It heads into New Jersey, and then it snakes back, it kind of crane necks back up, and it comes out in the Piermont Marsh. It's a very small watershed, but it has a lot to it. We don't have drinking water in our watershed, but actually, hold on a second, I think I lost the picture. All drinking water is drinking water. At the very first meeting of the Sparko Creek Watershed Alliance, and Greg McCurry, I'd like to give him a shout out. He's our co-chair. He's here. Is he still in the room? Hey, Greg. And Robert Tompkins. As an artist, I thought to bring this image. It's a little blurry here, but I brought a large Google satellite image of the watershed and gave everybody a red dot. And I said, could you put a red dot on the watershed and tell us like where you have a relationship in the watershed? And everybody did and told a little story about that spot. And storytelling is really important. And it really moved us all. I think that may have been one of the reasons we're almost all still together 5 years later. We just started off right, telling our stories, caring about each other's stories, places. And the goal at that point was after that day, was to heal our watershed by having red dots all over the map and through relationships. This is a picture of the headwaters area of our watershed. is a compilation. Our watershed has a mixed bag. We have through the suburban area and drainage through channel and siltation, and it needs work. And it comes out in Piermont Marsh. It has a lot of beautiful wildlife. So in the support of my work, this year I started reading the work of Joanna Macy, a deep ecologist, and she was teaching us something called systems theory, and deep's natural systems theory after the work of Ervin Laszlo, a Hungarian philosopher and scientist. And very simply what they say is that in the natural world, all life is basing its continuation on feedback loops. And the feedback loops have to be whole and authentic in order for life to be able to adapt and respond. And I said, oh my God, that is like what we're doing as citizens. I thought we were kind of intuitively doing this amazing, like figuring it out stuff, but I realized we were actually working within a system. We were trying to fix our feedback loops so that we can continue. And in the natural systems theory, it suggests that in nature, this all works beautifully when you have power with and not power over. And as you know, in our society, we live with this power over dilemma everywhere. And we see intentional breaks in these feedback loops. And I realized that our work as citizens is to mend the feedback loops. It's the work of every one of us, agents of change. But the citizens have a special ability. It's kind of like a little special, like, bag of tricks. We can go everywhere, talk to anybody at any time. We can, walk down and have a beer with the fishermen. I mean, electeds can do that. Everyone can do that. But we do it on our own time. We do it, everywhere we go, and we don't think in terms of projects, grants, deadlines, terms. It's just the way we live. And so that's a really good feature when the citizens engage fully in that way and then plug in with the elected officials and the scientists. I want to switch forward. This is a picture of us at work. I'm not going to describe what we're doing. I think everyone in this room might recognize what these pictures mean. Sampling, with our sampling sites, macro, community day, cleanups, tree plantings, visiting the swale at the college, highway department showing us their work and being an audience for the people doing good work, working with the Tappan Zee Bridge engineers on new green infrastructure projects, which is very cool. We have 2 wastewater treatment plants in our watershed, and so we're doing a lot of research on the pipes and what could possibly cause the sewage in our creek. Very interesting. We've had new GIS maps with a grant from HRWA, John Mickelson, 30 data layers made up. And with the Rockland Water Coalition, I'm not going to say more, but that work is on the same model that I'm talking about. Protecting Haverstraw Bay is dear to my heart. And all that work is good for the larger watershed. And before I go in my 3 more minutes, I want to show you what Straw Town Studio is about, because Simon asked me to introduce this work that I do outdoors with children. It's very informative in how we connect with the watershed. It's how we get to know the place. There's my work partner, Joanna Dickey, and talk about relationships. We've worked together for 13 years. We've run almost every single program together. The bond between us and the shared cognitive distributive knowledge between us is extraordinary. And it's so exponential. So I think in our watershed groups, when we get all these people together and we have all this exponential knowledge, we can move mountains. Our outdoor studio is wherever we lay our blanket down. It's the Sparkill headwaters. We teach, as part of all the DEC programs, art and science at the river, science and art. This was last week for a day in a life. Our art project was based on the shoreline stabilization of Nyack Beach, which needs it because the roots are exposed. It's a new rendering for that place, so we bring the river information into our teachings. We worked with roots. We wrote and thought about roots. Exploration of marsh grasses. Looking at why Phragmites might be more successful in polluted water than cattails. Painting with the two grasses. Crushing rocks and grinding them in the headwaters to make pigments to paint with and start to understand the geology. Making dioramas. Kids love that. Sculptures. And this child right here, Ray, is going to be someone who we're going to talk about for 1 minute. She's there feeling the pulse of the water in the stream, learning about macro invertebrates. She started with us when she was 6. When she was about 9 at the Sparkill Creek, she said, the creek smells really bad. And she said, Laurie, you need to let the adults know that the creek smells nasty. And you need to let the adults know that the kids know what they're not doing. And then she said, and if they're looking for something to do, well, here it is. And it was a moment. I was just transported. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that, Ray. And it was the beginning of the Sparkill Creek Watershed Alliance. And John Lipscomb came and took our first sample. And that was really important, the backbone that Riverkeeper gave us as a sampling identity and, for our first years. And that's Ray. I think 3 years later, she spoke at that 2-row canoe paddle down the river as the voice for water. There's like hundreds of Rays out in our watersheds. And it's really important we work closely with them and keep them in our heart every day so that we can really be future reaching in all of our daily activities. Thank you.